Hi all, this is Santosh Kumar, your host for RunYogi Diaries, Pondering While Wandering. About 10 years ago, I stumbled upon long distance running and long distance bicycling, and it changed my life. It changed my life because it put me on a quest for a constant self improvement, physically and obviously mentally. It also got me exposed to a lot of people who are on similar quests of self discovery. And so this show is about them. This show is about interviewing and listening to their experience and their journey and what we can learn from them. Let's see who's on the show today. Today, I have a very fascinating guest. At 60, he decided to start triathlons. And 19 years hence, he's still at it. Not only that, he decided to become a coach. He's a USATF certified coach for endurance sports. He's a biophysicist, he's an engineer, an amazing person and a great human being. So welcome to the show, Duane.
Well, hello. Hello, how are you doing?
Doing great, and thanks for being on the show.
Sure, you bet. It's a lot of fun.
Great. So Duane, obviously you started at 60, which is a fascinating story. Most people at 60, and especially from cultures that I come from, at 60 is, end of life for many people. Not all, but many people. Mm-hmm. But you are thriving, right? And so we'd love to hear, how did it all start? How come you decided to start at 60? And that also triathlons. So let's.
That's funny. Yeah, that's funny. Actually, my wife's mother was a manager of the Santa Rosa Island Triathlon, and we went down there to visit with her mother in Pensacola, and this triathlon was going on, and so Judy said, we should do that. I was thinking, yeah. So why not? I mean, I was watching, some of the stragglers coming in at the end, just dragging their butts across. And I was thinking, that's an interesting thing. So that's really what got me going with triathlon. But prior to that, I'd been doing a lot of other things, but I never really considered myself that hardcore about it, that I got completely taken up with it. Except for windsurfing. I kind of did that with windsurfing, and I've done that with a couple of other things, but that's kind of what got me into it. And it's like one of those things. If you're someone that something piques your interest, and I don't know what it would be for you, but it's something. Well, it's probably running. I mean, you've run God knows how many marathons, right? And it was something that piqued your interest. And once we get into that, I mean, it may be being interested in ants. I mean, who knows? People get into something and then they go. So that's how I got there.
Great. So were you athletic at school and during your college days? Why a triathlon? You could have been golfing.
Oh, right. Well, you know what? That's kind of interesting. I kind of got into golfing a little bit, but I found it to be a little trickier for me and a friend of mine who's just a hardcore golfer in that same kind of way, said, well, you've got really long legs. So my this is all like physics, right? It's the physics of what makes the body work. And I've got a short body in comparison, it's like, that much shorter, and my legs are about that much longer. For a 6'1" guy, I have more legs than upper body. And he said, I've noticed people with long legs have a problem with basically the height on the ball. So in other words, my golfing turned out to be a struggle with hitting the ball at the proper height, and it kind of tapered off. In college, the thing that turned me on to endurance sports was I happened to take a course called it was called physical fitness, and it was a semester of just that. You took a bunch of tests and you timed yourself, everybody, how many sit-ups you could do in 2 minutes, and how long it would take you to run a mile, and all of that stuff, and on and on and on. And so you worked at it every day, and then at the end of the semester, you took those same tests again and see how much you improved. And that was something that stuck for some reason, the metrics. And I'm just into metrics, maybe. I mean, that's the physicist, scientist side of me, the geek, the true geek that likes numbers. And said, wow, this is really pretty cool. You know, this kind of drives, without really knowing it, it was really driving the rest of my life about athletic performance with respect to numbers. And I had never really been there before. For me, it was always a process, just a process of, like, for instance, windsurfing is not about numbers. That's about balance, about speed that you can't really measure, and all that kind of stuff. This other thing, for some reason, it became one of those things. I think that was the thing that kind of got me started. And then I kept running after that and doing other things, which I had done before, but not to that extent. So that was a big turning point.
Great. And you've done 50 of those since then, 50 triathlons.
Yeah, I haven't kept track. I've got some pictures of the medals and all that kind of stuff that you get. It's a pile of stuff. And I really haven't kept track. All I wanted to do was, you know, after you've done a few triathlons, you know, and you get your butt whipped, you know, by people that are faster because they've been doing it forever. And then you want to start winning. And then this guy said to me, you know, I've got this coach, you know, and if I just do what they say, I win. So I thought, you know, I'll stop trying to self-train. And I've got all these, you know, math, you know, big pieces of paper writing down every day what I was doing. And self-training, turns out, if you don't really know it's kind of like anything. Okay, let's say you want to learn, I don't know, data science. You can start with that, but it's kind of good to take the courses that are sequential, and so you start learning stuff. Well, the same thing with self-training for triathlon or running or bicycling or swimming, or probably horseback riding, all of those kinds of things. You've got to study from a master, or, you know, or someone that has learned in a classical manner. So I started taking from a coach, and the whole thing changed. I mean, I wasn't working as long. My workouts weren't as long. Well, some of them were the same, but then they were shorter, but more focused, a lot more focused. And once you start to focus, then you start to get good. And then I started to win. And then it was like, now that's what I do. I'm not going to enter a race unless I think that I can win. I mean, I'm not going to, unless I'm prepared, I'm not going to go into a season, you know, and just kind of slog along. But it was fun. The first ones were fun. They were just doing it because they're fun. Nicest people in the world. Triathletes are just, they're very cool usually. They'll help you. They'll even stop to help you. If you've got a problem, you know, they'll stop and say, oh, here, blah, 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 maybe help you with this or something. Not to threaten their own time. I mean, they don't want to drop from second to third, or, you know, end up way back in the pack in their age group. They you know, they generally try to, but that process of going through that and winning and making podium every single time, and knowing who your competitors are, and all of that became the glue that then it's a had-to thing. And it's a good thing that I'm not doing longer races. I mean, if I was doing halves or irons, I would not have a family anymore, because I would just be so into it. You know, I mean, my wife would basically say, you know, you've got to stop this. You cannot take up that much time.
It's me or the triathlon.
And you know that with your training, you know that you have to do some fairly long runs, and you've got to be consistent. And so that it's a good portion of your life, but it's saving your life for later, because that has a good effect on you. So Santosh is going to be, you know, you're going to be good at 90 unless you jump out in front of a truck or something, which you are not going to do.
Absolutely. No, that's a great point. And so you've been at it for 19 years, and obviously uh, things would have changed. And a couple of things I had to ask you. One is there a favorite distance that you prefer today or has changed ever since
Okay,
the
yes.
last 19 years?
Yeah, yeah. My favorite
So I have
was,
one more question, as a couple of questions. So maybe you can answer both at the same time. So one is that, and second is, how has your training changed in the last 19 years?
how has my, how has the, oh, how has my game changed? Is that what you asked?
Training.
Oh, training. Okay, okay, okay. Um, yes. So you will notice age. You know, I've, there's this tired old saying, age is just a number, and in a way it's true, and in a way it's completely false. Age does take its toll. We spend our lives, probably from the year 20 on, fighting entropy. In other words, the general collapse of structure. So it has an effect on your joints, um, on the amount of muscle that you've got, your muscle tone, uh, your skin, your neurological system, and all of that. So when I started out at age 60, which I felt like I was about 40, now I feel like I'm about 48. Uh, weird state of mind. It's a state of mind, right? Age is a state of mind. How about that? And it's not, age is not a number, it's a state of mind.
You look 48.
Yeah. And because of your running, your state of mind is much younger. I mean, you put out a feeling of much younger because you've got the energy and the aura, the stuff that you're putting out. So when I started, I was I didn't really have anything that would that was much of a problem. Maybe some plantar fasciitis, some things that anyone gets at any age. And then as I got older, well, for one thing, I had a bike wreck and I broke my hip, which it came out. I mean, it was completely broken. And so the guy replaced it, and boom, it was as good as new. Within 2 weeks, I was like, whoa, how'd this happen? I mean, it's stainless steel, and it's made out of, I don't know what, it's this big thing, and it hasn't affected anything really, except that it will wear out. So that put a little bit of a thing in here. So the guy said, my doctor said, yeah, you can do sprint and Olympic distance, and you've probably got a good chance of it lasting for another 30 years. But he didn't say iron. And I know that the more you work out, the longer you work out, the harder you work out, on running especially, well, maybe not especially, maybe only, it's going to wear that hip out. So I dropped back from wanting to do iron and half iron. When I was ready to start winning, I backed off from that. My favorite distance was actually Olympic, because sprint distance is more for sprinters, more people with a little more, it's more speed than endurance. And I'm more of an endurance guy. I've got more type 2 muscle fibers that will go longer, like a kangaroo, or I don't know what, a camel or something. So in order to compensate for that, I have to do a lot of strength training. So sprint is now my favorite distance. And it's hard because you've really got to crank. The run is not, it's not an endurance run. It's a tempo run. Tempo means a fairly high heart rate zone where you can't really say more than a few words at a time. But it's my favorite, and probably the only one that I can do now besides super sprint, which is shorter and even faster. But that's just because of the things that are wrong. My knees hurt. My knees are a little more sensitive, and so that was kind of a long way around answering your question. But I think
that's great. Great, you covered a lot of ground. So in these 19 years, is there a favorite race of yours? Anything?
Wow, I've got several. the one that I cut my teeth on is the Santa Rosa Island Triathlon. It's just a sunny, hot race on the Gulf, and it's short. Well, short. I mean, it's a sprint. You know, it's about 18 miles bike. You know, that kind of thing. It's often windy. Sometimes blows sand in your face, and there are a lot of very fast people in that race. But it's just so jolly for me. It's the jolliest race. I really liked. The only time that race opened up was one in North Georgia, and was called it's Lake Lanier Olympic Park. It's North Georgia Olympic Park, and it's at the Olympic Park there, and that's a good race. And it's hard because the hills, they're short but nasty, and so the run is it's a real sweater, but that's a good race. And the Try the Park series in Georgia, they're an excellent series of races, and they're all good, and they're very well attended, and I mean, they're all good, really. There hasn't been a race that I've run that I did not like.
Great. And any low point, any point that's forgettable?
Oh, so many.
One race that's your worst race. Oh my gosh, I wish I had not done that.
Oh man. In fact, this is funny. You know, I mean, this may have been the last race I ran in 2018, because 19 was a loss. We had a TV show in our house, and we had to leave, and then I hurt my leg, and on and on and on. It was terrible. I think the last race in 2018 was, I think it was the Santa Rosa Island Triathlon, and there were so many things that went wrong. It was a very rough swim, and somehow I was just exhausted after that swim. It was 600 meters, which is what, I don't know, a third of a mile, or it's not all that. But it was rough. There was an onshore wind, and it just beat the living daylights out of me. By the time I got out of the water, I was pretty tired. I recovered reasonably well. Was kind of ripping along on the bike, and there was a double loop where you come back around, and then at the end, then you come back, and the turnaround point, there was somebody laying on the ground, and there were ambulances there and people around, and I said, oh, it's not a turnaround point. What did they do? I missed it. So I thought they must have moved it. I went on past that, and I realized, oh my God, that was the turnaround point. Nobody told me. So I said, it's too late to go. It's too late to go back. I just went on. I said, I'm just going to I've been disqualified. So I came back, came in, no accidents, no more people laying on the ground. And I told the race director, I found him immediately. I said, hey, I'm DQ'd. I said, I missed the turnaround. There was somebody laying there. And he said, you're just DNF. That means did not finish. He said, man, look at your time. You should have turned around. You would have won. But between the swim and my brain fog that was one of my worst. I've had a few worst. In fact, it was my first race, my first race, and I was looking around. I can handle these guys. When my wave went out, they go out in waves. My age groups, or they, so you're not, 500 people going out at the same time, clawing and biting at each other, and I was clawing and biting my way out, and then I realized, okay, I haven't even gotten to the first buoy. Now I have to swim 600 meters. I was out about, we're out like about 150 feet, and now I'm going to have to swim to that buoy, and I realized I was already exhausted and frightened. And if you're not used to an open water swim to begin with in the ocean, and then you've got people hitting you and climbing over the top of you, and now you have to swim, there's a part of your brain. It looks like this. It's kind of like a lizard. It's your lizard brain. It says, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. And it's your unconscious. It takes over. And the sympathetic nervous system, we deal with heart rate variability. The sympathetic nervous system is the one that you deal with in a panic. the fight or flight, and it's there and it wins, and you're going to drown and you go into a panic. You can't stop it because this thing is taking over. It's taking over your life, and you know you're going to die, and you're holding up your hand, and a guy comes over with a paddleboard or with a kayak. They're all over the place. People are holding up their hands. They get in trouble. And you hold on for a while and say, God, I was so stupid. What am I doing? What have I done? What have I done? Finally, it says, oh, okay, I think you're okay now. And I can swim. Well, by that time, I was the last one in my age group. It was like, so those are two examples of just, yes, but there are many.
Great. Yeah. Great. I love the way you showed the lizard brain as it's something for someone who's listening and seeing this can relate to, visually saying, oh, that's the lizard brain sitting in my head constantly telling me.
You know that feeling because you've had it.
Yeah.
It's like during a run or something, all of a sudden it's like, oh man, you know what? I don't know what's the matter when you're low on food. I don't know what, stuff. Just
yeah.
It's the weirdest thing.
Absolutely. No, I think we're going to talk about in the second part of the show. We're going to go a little deep dive into heart rate variability. That's a great topic you brought out. But I think, from what you're saying, and this is something I've experienced, is also that over a period of time, when you put yourself out there into these situations, you also learn how to transcend this attack of the lizard brain.
Yes.
And you get to learn to be calm and learn how to respond to these situations. And that's a part of the training and growing inside the endurance sports, right?
Yes, yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's kind of like being in the zone. And when you're in the zone, you're mindless, and that pain, that stone in your shoe, or you've got something going on, or the sun is in your eyes, or your sweat is dripping into your eye, and your eye hurts, and you can't get rid of it. And the more you rub it, the worse it gets. And yes, that's real good training. So I was talking to a friend who was a Navy SEAL, and I said, there are part of the training is that there are probably many parts like this, but there's one where they're at the bottom of the pool and they're swimming, and you can't come up for air, and you have to stay there. And that panic, that moment of panic, it's more serious in this case because they actually are drowning. I mean, you finally start to run out of oxygen, and at that point, I said, how do you keep on going? Because they all of a sudden see that the people watching, all of a sudden see that somebody stopped moving, and that's they have to go down and they have to get them, and they went past that point. And I said, how do you get past the point? How did you get past that point? And he said, I don't care if I die. Damn it, I'm just going to prove that I can do this thing. And that's going beyond any point that I've been. I have not been to the point where I die, and I'm going to show them. I'm going to show them thing. I'm going to show them that they can't beat me, that I don't care if I die. And that's a pretty scary place to be. But that's what they often. So I guess if you're going to do Marines, if you're going to do SEALs, people want to aspire to that. I don't know.
Sure. Great. This is a great pivot. We're going to talk about mental toughness. We're going to talk about heart rate variability. We're going to talk about your coaching, portfolio services. And I have a few questions from some of my friends for this show. So I want to take a short break now and come back in about a couple of minutes. And we continue with some of these interesting conversations, and we pivot into something more technical. All right?
All right.